So welcome to the Run Your Mind podcast, the first in-person group roundtable. So thank you everyone for joining me today. The topic today is going to be all around resilience. And I think it's a topic that gets thrown around a lot, particularly in running and day-to-day life, where people will often hear them say, just be resilient, you've got to be resilient. And it can be a bit of a throwaway word sometimes. And it's all very well saying this, but what does that actually mean? How do you build resilience? How do you become more intentional and become more aware of maybe when you are being resilient in situations? So the conversation, and it will be very much a conversation today with my great guests here that I'll ask them to introduce themselves shortly, will be around this. So without further ado, thank you again for everyone for coming along. I'm just going to start briefly, if we could start with just a bit of a brief introduction for the very few people that probably don't know who you are, because I'm sure lots of people watching do. Deo, if we start with you, just intro about yourself, and then if you could just finish with, when you think of the word resilience, what's one word you associate that with right now?
Hi, I'm Deo Kato, and I am an ultra endurance runner. And if I think of the word resilience, the one word I can associate it with is adaptation, being able to adapt to whatever situation and circumstances you're in.
Great. Anthony.
So I'm Anthony Bryan. I'm a brain tumour survivor, a stroke survivor, and I have 2 Guinness World Records, one in the marathon and one in the half marathon. A word describing resilience for me would be possibility, because the more resilient you are, the more possibilities in life you could have achieving incredible things.
Great. Lara?
I'm Lara. Lovely to meet you all. I got diagnosed with autism at 27, and shortly after I found running as a way to manage some of those feelings that I was experiencing of being diagnosed. And being diagnosed with autism together with running kind of changed the trajectory of my life. I left the corporate world. I'm doing a running project to improve autism accessibility. I'm starting a run club for autistic and neurodivergent people. And I'm starting a podcast as well for neurodivergent people. So I guess it's testament to I kind of rehauled my life completely with the focus of making sure that people that have been resilient their whole life can find a space where they can be themselves and spaces that are designed for them as well to belong. If I think of a word like resilience, I would say mental strength, which is what I think I've had many times to be resilient, and many people that are resilient embody that mental strength. So that's what it is for me.
Great. And Esme?
Hi, I'm Esme. Do you know what my dad said to me the other day? Oh, my friends keep asking what you do, because I just do so much. Like, I'm a personal trainer, fitness coach, all of this. So I said, Dad, put it in ChatGPT. Let's see what it says. And it said, Esme Gummer is an endurance athlete. Okay. And a community leader and presenter. So now I'm going to call myself that. And it feels really weird. I actually had to go to an appointment the other day and they said, what do you do for a job? I said, endurance athlete. What do you mean? But yeah, the reason for that is because I'm about to take on a project. I'm running to every single city in the UK and Dublin, and I'm going to host a free 5k club for that city, and my goal is to inspire 1 million people to move. It's going to take me 99 days, 5,000 kilometres across the country. So yeah, that's why ChatGPT probably said that. And when I think of resilience, I actually think gratitude and joy. And the reason I say that is because I think we're always faced with people who are resilient in a really like tough, like, you know, angry. It's so deep way. And actually my resilience comes from being grateful that I can move, and the joy of movement. That's what keeps me going. So yeah.
Great. Well, as I mentioned to you all before we started today, I want this to be very much a conversation and a discussion, so feel free again to jump in and share your thoughts. And I wanted just to start with a statement that I'd love for you to either give me a true or false or a somewhere in between, and feel free to build on it. So the statement is, tough moments matter more than good ones in shaping who you are. True, false, or somewhere in between. Feel free if anyone wants to go and jump in with their thought.
100% true for me. Without a doubt. I feel like looking back, I've learned so much more from the hard moments, and we typically stop and analyse what went wrong in the hard moments versus analysing what went good in the right moment. So a lot of my learnings come from the tougher moments, from work experiences, all the way through to the project I'm doing. My first race and my second, I had bad experiences on both different ends. The first one I didn't feel enough, and the second one I fueled too much, right? So the third one I got right because I analysed what went wrong. So for me, it's definitely true. You learn more from the hard moments.
I'm still thinking about it.
I think it's the tough times that getting through those tough times make you resilient. And then when you're getting through those resilient tough times, it creates a really great experience. Like, for example, going through a marathon, you have times where you think you can't go anymore, you can't go any further. But when you cross that finish line, it's like a euphoria feeling. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, similar. It goes back to what I was kind of saying about resilience then. Like, we're so used to thinking that resilience has to, it's quite a mask thing. I think resilience, we see quite mask, and like it's presented to us in a mask way of people like, it's ugly, gritting teeth. And I think for me, going through a tough time, and an example of that for me was I got paralysed from waist down and I learned to walk again. But as a consequence of that, the gratitude and joy that comes from movement for me is the thing that keeps me going. So a lot of people say, oh, can you run an ultra marathon because you got paralysed, and do you draw on, you could never walk again and you'll look at me now? Actually, no. I actually draw on, wow, this is amazing. I can move. One day I won't be able to do this. So actually, my kind of take on that is the joyful moments are what keep me going, but it does stem from something tough happening. So I think it's how you can take something tough, transition it into joy, and then that joy is what then pushes you every single day. I don't really rely on the tough moments to get me out of bed. I rely on the joyful moments of I can today to get me out of bed.
Yeah.
I am on the sliding scale towards a little bit more. I'm like in between, but sliding scale towards more of the tough times, because I think the tough times, like Esme just said, are what builds those really things that you can really enjoy about the good times. You have to go through the tough times to really realize and appreciate the good times, and the good times are the ones that actually get you out to actually really believe that you get through the tough times, because without the good times, you would never know if you're going to appreciate the tough times. So I think it's more a bit of a sliding scale rather than just being too much on one side.
Yeah, it's that kind of contrast. If you don't have the good, you don't know what the bad feels like. Or if you don't have the bad, you don't know what the good feels like. Esme, you mentioned there around that experience of being paralysed and learning to walk again. Does anyone else pick out a moment which they think, do you know what, at the time was obviously very difficult and a tough experience, but has then gone on to give you, whether it's joy or whether it's a better sense of self or learning about yourself in some way?
Well, for me, I had a brain tumour when I was just 6 years old. So I went from being an able-bodied, sporty child to then being bedbound. And doctor said to my parents, unfortunately, Auntie will never run or be very active again. But for me, what I wanted to do was prove those doctors wrong. So that gave me that fire and ambition to try and prove them wrong. So sometimes to get through a tough time, you got to flip it upside down and see another side of it. How can I turn this bad situation into a good situation? And for me, it was achieving something they said I couldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anyone ever saw that Fred Again and Zane Lowe documentary, but there's an excerpt at the end of it by Stephen Colbert, and he's saying, I'm grateful for the things that I wish that didn't happen to me. And sort of talking about from that angle there of like, I'm not saying I'm glad this has happened, or he's not buying into this, everything happens for a reason, but almost like it doesn't happen for a reason, but once something has happened, you can then decide almost what you do with it, which is kind of what you both have talked about there. Yeah,
I can massively get on board with that, because I don't feel angry that I got paralysed, but and it's weird because I don't know if you feel the same. I kind of am like, you kind of want everyone to feel that feeling of it being taken away. Like, I make it my mission now to try and explain to people that this is going to happen to you one day, whether it's an accident that brings it on, old age, medical, no matter who you are, everybody out there is going to have to say no to movement one day for whatever reason that is. And I spend my life now trying to get people to understand that feeling so they feel inspired to go and move. But in a way, I wish people could understand what it feels like to be paralysed, just so they got that burning desire to move. Because there's so many people that are inactive and, will get to the end of their life, never have gone for a run or feeling a finish line feeling of an event. And to me, I'm like, that's the worst thing ever. You're never going to know what it's like to finish something. So yeah, it's weird because I don't hate that it happened, but I do, because it was horrendous.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people take it for granted because they haven't been exposed to the hardship that you might have been exposed?
I think, but everyone can relate to that. It doesn't have to be being paralysed, right? I think we all, when the only way I can describe it to people is like, when you get a cold, when you're sick and you can't eat, like you can't taste food, right? And you go, oh my God, like I just wish I could taste food again. And then when you can taste food again, you eat it and then you go, yeah, I can taste food again. Yes, but then it wears off instantly. That's the only way I can describe it. Or like when you're ill and you can't go out and do activities or go out with your friends, or you can't go do sport or go to the gym, and you go, oh my God, when I'm better, I'm going to run every single day and I'm going to be motivated. It lasts for like a second. It's that, but times a million, I'd say. Yes. And I think people experience it every day, getting things taken away from them. But what they don't experience is like the lasting effect of, I will never take this for granted again, because having a cold isn't that deep. Do you know what I mean?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose that's obviously something you can take in that respect. When it comes to running in itself, what do you think, and I'll just come to you, Deo, for this first of all, what do you think one thing that running has done to teach you about yourself from running that maybe you wouldn't have got otherwise?
Oh, it's too much. I mean, like for me, when I started running, like I was running all my life, and I didn't actually realize I was running all my life. But when I intentionally started to run is when I didn't have the ability to be able to do any sports at all. So again, it was taken away from me because I have a condition that's never been diagnosed, and it means that my body overheats and refuses to sweat, and heat is trapped into my body, so I extremely overheat. So I will never be able to. I can't be in a hot environment when it happens, and it's a trigger that happens all the time. So that ability to be sporty was taken away when I left school. And when I started to start running is because, again, the doctor told me that this condition was in my head. And there's nothing wrong with me, because he couldn't be able to diagnose me. He said, it's all in my head. There's nothing wrong with me, so just go away. And I went there to ask him for some sort of note to give to my university and so on, so I can have something to at least associate with the condition. But I was bedbound or in the house all the time, whenever it's summertime. And that is the moment when the doctor said to me that it's all in your head, when I decided to say, you know what, I need to move and diagnose myself or like heal my body. And I started running inside the house. And that's how I started running intentionally. And gradually, I managed to get outside the house and run around my block, and then go into the park, run in the park, because I managed to force my body to sweat. And that gave me relief to be able to move. And now I've ended up running from Cape Town to London because of that one decision that I made. And somebody said to me that you can't do this, or everything is in your head. So I think that's what changed my whole perspective about movement, healing, and the decision-making that you make that's intentional. That's what it changed.
So do you still have the condition?
I still have the condition now.
Wow. And what does it just like flare up sometimes?
Yeah, it flares up mainly when I have a shower or bath, because I would be like in a, cold bath, and then I come out, and then all of a sudden I'm in a warm environment, and then it flares up. So it only happens once a day. Yeah. Was before it happened all the time. But because of running and management and sweating, forcing my body to sweat, it regulates my body, and then I can be in a hot environment. And that's how I managed to be in the desert, just because of that.
Wow.
So running changed your life?
It completely changed my whole life, yeah.
And you were using running really as a tool for this for this condition.
Yeah, it means that I can never stop running. So I have to do it for until I'm 90 or 100. But it just, I think it's a great motivator to actually keep moving all the time. Basically, right now, if I stop for like doing any sort of movement for like 2 weeks to a month, it comes back up. So I have to constantly be moving at least.
You run every day?
Not anymore, but I know when it's gonna happen. So I have to like say, okay, at this point, I need to go out and do like, you know, a short run or something like that, just to regulate my body. And then later, you know, sometimes I do every day, sometimes I don't. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. What about you, Lara? What's one thing do you think that running has taught you about yourself?
I think the art of positive talk in my case, because I got diagnosed at 27, but before that I always felt very different and very out of place and forcing myself into situations and, you know, having challenges that other people were doing things with ease that I found really difficult. And that led to me having a lot of negative talk as to like, I'm the problem, or I'm the issue, why I can't socialize as easily, or why I struggle so much to going to school, or why I was changed, say, 7 times from school to school because I didn't fit in. And a lot of it was like, I'm the issue. I need to do better. I need to do more eye contact. I need to ask people more questions so they can like me more, whatever that might be. And through running, it made me realize that like, our body is moving, we're capable, and the only way to go further is by being kind to yourself and to having positive thinking, because it's very hard to make that transition. But when I started running, I was like, how am I going to run a marathon? It's impossible. Context, I signed up to the London Marathon for charity and I had never done more than a 5K. So obviously that was like a leap in my journey, and a lot of it was fueled through negative self-talk as to like, it's impossible, I'm not going to be able to do it. And then when I slowly transitioned as to like, I'm actually following the training plan, I'm doing it, it kind of reinforced that thing of like, I'm doing something amazing, I'm doing something great. There's so many other people at the London Marathon that are going through the same feelings that I am, and I've never done this before, might never do it again, and that might be the best day of their life, like it was for me, you know. And that's transitioned into after the London Marathon. Training for it and crossing that finish line for me healed my diagnosis and all the questions I had of my past and all the negative self-talk, which I still, of course, do, and everyone does to some capacity. But what I found through running was being kind to myself and positive self-talk. And I don't think I would have if it wasn't for movement. Call it whatever type of movement, right? So be yoga, walking, whatever that might be for people. So, and I know my experience isn't unique to me. And I think similar to you, that you said that people, you know, don't really take it for granted, the art of moving. I feel like for autistic people, all of our challenges are internal and it's an invisible disability. So many people don't know who are autistic that just by moving, it's rhythmic movement, and that helps you regulate your nervous system. It helps you with stimming, of course, with mental health benefits. And they have no idea that by just going out for a run, which seems simple and difficult for some, but by just doing that, you're helping yourself and you're making yourself feel better. So yeah, I think I explored a lot through finding running, and I want others to be able to find that too as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think that self-talk is such a prominent thing, isn't it? I throw this stat out sometimes, but we can speak about 130 words per minute. We can type about 70 words per minute. Rap god Eminem, 260 words per minute. But our self-talk is between 800 and 1,200 words per minute. And it's so loud in there. And of course it can be, particularly with running, can't it, in a race, and even just outside of it, the thing that can sabotage you before you've even begun. For you, Anthony, like with self-talk over the years, is that something you've become more conscious of and worked on intentionally?
Massively, because I went from able-bodied to disabled. My self-talk was really hard on myself. I was my own worst enemy. I was the only disabled child in the whole school. So I became very shy, very self-conscious. Told myself no girls will ever be interested in me or anything like that. And I was getting told, you can't do this, you can't do that. So I became very hard on myself. I was really kind of suicidal as a child. And I just kind of thought, I wish I'd never survived this brain tumour. And it was sport that brought out my confidence and made me feel good about myself. And I started achieving things that's when I started feeling good about myself. So it was sport that got me out of that hole.
That's great. I suppose one of these things I'd love to understand from everyone as well is resilience. Everyone shared like what it is now, but like, what did it used to mean for you then when you first started? Was it something that meant something completely different to you as to what it does now, or is it something that stayed the same?
I didn't really learn the word resilience till later on in life, really. As a child, I just wanted to prove people wrong and show that I could do it. And then my main thing is I would never give up. I would keep pushing and trying new things and giving it a go. And then people are like, your strength is resilience. And until I learned the word, I was like, okay, maybe I am, yeah.
Yeah, great. Was there a moment in your journey then that when you, and thank you for sharing that as well, from what you experienced when you were younger to now, like that you would say, there's probably many moments, but was there, like, if you were saying, if you're writing a book, here's one of the chapters that was a turning point in your self-talk and how you view things?
When I read David Gong's book, that was a massive game changer for me. So there's a chapter called Be the Only, and he describes how when he was ultra triathlon training, he'd look to his left and he'd look to his right and be like, yeah, these guys, they train hard, but none of them really stand out. And then he looked over to his left and he saw a guy just perch himself off his wheelchair, get ready to dive in. He goes, there he is, that guy. He's the only. Yeah, everyone's trained hard, but he's trained hard and he's doing it with a disability that makes him even more incredible. And until I read that, I was always very shy and self-conscious of my disability. And I read that and I thought, that's me. Every time I've gone into a race, I've always been the only disabled person doing it. And I've always kind of hid away and shied away. So I shouldn't shy away. I should show what I can do and be the only and own it. And then that I can use that to inspire other people to do the same. And yeah, that's what reading that really grew my confidence.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Anthony, this, like when people say to you that you're resilient, did it take a long time for you to believe it, or did you believe straight away that, you know what, I am resilient?
I think it took me a long time to believe that. I would look at a challenge and be like, I can do that. Yeah. And then just keep going and keep going. And then when I read into resilience, I was like, that's what it is. It's never giving up and it's pushing through those barriers.
What about you, Esme? How's your meaning of resilience evolved? What did it used to mean?
Definitely came from what I was speaking about earlier, like a lot of pain, and I used to get a lot of my resilience from pain. I'd draw on pain purposely. I would, I'd go to the depths of depression and pain, and when I'd been depressed and what had happened to me when I got paralysed and why had it happened. I never got answers. I grew up as a dancer. I loved dancing. Dancing was my freedom. Dancing was how I, helped myself and my mind. But I didn't realise that. And people would say to me as a child, "Oh, you're very happy. You're very positive." It wasn't actually. It was the movement that was doing it. But back then we hadn't related mental health and movement to each other. So I was kind of the living proof that movement's good for your mental health because I was happy. I was a happy child. If you'd have taken away the dancing, I wonder if I would have been a happy child. I had problems like everybody else as a teenager and family problems and everything that everybody else has. So I think the movement did it. So to go into an operation, to have a hernia repair and to come out paralysed because I'd seizured for 8 hours, I never found out why. They told me I was allergic to the anaesthetic. I'd had anaesthetic before. Later on in life, I found out it was an overdose. So I'd lived my whole life believing that I was allergic to the anaesthetic. I was a 1 in a million chance that I was going to have this reaction, and my reaction led to me being paralysed from waist down. Actually, later on in life, it came, someone made a mistake and they hid that from you. And I got a lot of anger and frustration. And the bit that bothered me the most, even to this day, wasn't being paralysed. It was when I was under the anaesthetic, unconscious, what happened in that room, who made the mistake, who didn't take accountability, and who led me to believe we don't know what happened. It was very... And so I got a lot of my resilience from being angry and frustrated and, fuck the world, like everyone's a liar and everyone, So I spent a lot of years in pain and hardness, and I shut down. I never cried. I went on SAS Who Dares Wins, and people crying left, right and centre, and I all the way to the very final. I just didn't, budge. But then later on in life, I did realise that, breaking down and being open and talking about feeling and saying these things that I'm saying now, right? I can't believe someone did that to me. I never used to say that out loud. actually then I was like, no, my resilience doesn't need to come from so much anger and frustration and, being angry that what people did. Actually, that's when it came from, no, be grateful for where I am now and what I'm doing now and how much I love movement. So yeah, I can't sit here and say that I've always been just joyful about it. It wasn't like I got paralyzed, learned to walk and was like, woohoo. I was depressed for ages and angry for ages and jealous of people for ages. I went through a lot, and that actually was what, pushed me.
Similar question to Anthony then, what was one of those turning points, do you think, in your journey?
I think SAS Who Dares Wins was a massive turning point. It was the first year they let females in. It was the first year I kind of, sounds weird, but realised, being a female meant something. I hadn't noticed. I'd watched SAS Who Dares Wins my whole life and loved it. I didn't even click that women don't go on it. And I was like, people would say, oh, I'd love to go on that show. Yeah, but you can't because you're a woman. Oh, yeah, I can't apply. You couldn't apply to go on it because I was,
I have so many questions.
crazy.
I'm obsessed with that. It's my favourite. It's one of those things when you're scrolling to find something and it's on, I'm like, it's the best week of my life.
But, this was 2018 that I went on the show. So as before that, women could not put in an application form, but I watched it going, yeah, I'm a woman. Of course I can't apply. So I think that was a turning point. Because I was the first female. I was on the first show with the first females, mixing men and women together, seeing how incredible women are, seeing the impact that the women had on the men in there, seeing that the reason men made it so far was as a consequence of women being in there, which was incredible. Not because women are better than men or men are better than women. Actually, women and men working together is amazing. Because we can help each other in different ways. It's not instead of, it's like, can we both be in this? It's not you instead of me, it's as well as. And that was a turning point. Because I came out of SAS Who Dares Wins loving the femme side of me, of compassion and crying and, all of this side. And I think that was my turning point, was actually by being a woman and being more feminine and being in touch, because I was so masculine, And I went into that femme side of like actually being open and sharing and crying is so strong, and it can make other people feel strong around you. So yeah, it was definitely a turning point that I would say when I came out of there, I cried. I watched TV adverts and cried. I watched X Factor and cried, and I loved it. I thought, I'm crying, I'm feeling. My boyfriend broke up with me. I cried. Yeah. Before we'd have arguments, I didn't cry. He'd be like, what is wrong with you? And I loved it. So yeah, it was starting to cry for any reason, happy or sad, was a turning point in my life.
How do you think that has served you now in that space when it comes to running or taking on challenges like you are now? How do you mentioned earlier about joy, but what other ways do you think you will draw resilience in what you're doing? I
think from being just honest with myself. For being honest with myself and honest with the people around me, I'm so open to tell people exactly how I feel. I don't need to go out and run a 70k and say to everyone, yeah, it's fine. Because it looks good. That was really tough. At 50k, I actually thought I was going to quit. I nearly stopped. But then this song came on, or I thought of this person. I had a little cry. I'm not scared to do that. Before it would have been, yeah, I ran 70k, it's nothing. But it was deep, dark inside. I think being open and honest to people and myself. I hit a wall at 50k the other day on my training run. And I said to myself, this is so hard. But then my other self said, but we're going to do it. And then I finished and I ran through smiling and everyone went, you look like you've not run. I said, oh, trust me, at 50k I was going to give up. But I could have pretended. I could have come through and said, oh, you look like you've not run. Yeah, no. Nothing. But no, I'm honest and open with me and people. No, at 50k, guys, I did want to quit. I am normal. Yeah. I'm not an anomaly,
Yeah, I think that's the perfect balance, isn't it? It's pushing yourself, it's challenging yourself, but that vulnerability builds that relatability, doesn't it? Is being able to share along the way and go, I did this, but this is how I felt about it. How do you, as a group, and I'll feel free for someone to jump in here, because of course we're in this kind of culture where, we obviously want to raise awareness. There's a lot of people in here who've done challenges. We've in some way, whether we're doing it now or we have done. And this is about, encouraging other people to push themselves. But there's a line there sometimes, of course, where people are doing this and just sort of pretending that they're absolutely fine when they're actually just putting their mental health through an absolute torture. Like, how do you think people could ensure that they're not going over the wrong kind of line here when it comes to this, and being able to encourage people to work on their resilience, but just as long as maybe they're not leaving themselves in the pits completely, like mentally, as a result of it?
Lara, I feel like this is something you did for so long.
Yeah, I think for me, I actually asked my sister when you asked me to come on the podcast, when does she think I've been resilient? Because I never thought of myself being resilient, because in my mind, waiting for a diagnosis and kind of surviving, I was just carrying on with the day. I was just doing things that were really difficult, and I was just not really associating that was being resilient. And those moments of being resilient and pushing through and adversity and all these things is what led me to a diagnosis. But it led me to a diagnosis because not opening up about how I was feeling, not sharing my emotions or communicating anything led me to isolation, depression, severe anxiety, to burnout at work, and all these things that there was a positive side because it led me to a diagnosis. But it was only after my diagnosis that I realized that what I was facing was adversity, was challenges. And now it's a much different scenario. But back then, I was a very different person. Very different. Like, I was quite mute. Funny enough, was on a road trip yesterday, and my partner, who I've been with 8 years, I think now, was pulling up photos of when we started dating. It was a long road trip, by the way. It was from Ireland to London. And I had this kind of anxiety fuel instantly when I saw the photos, because I didn't recognize myself, because that's how much I've changed. And what I didn't recognize was the type of kind of persona that I was putting on just to fit in and to just kind of get throughout the day. But in reality, I was masking. And that's why there's so many women out there that are late diagnosed, because we struggle with communicating what we're feeling inside, what our challenges are. We're told to kind of follow suit, follow the rules, and just girls are just that way, right? That's what you're meant to do. So many women are late diagnosed because of that, because we're not communicating our challenges with many other things as well, right? So I think similar to what Esma said about being honest and being vulnerable just leads you to the other side of getting the support you need and getting the help you need. And then also being able to identify that you're actually really hardworking, you're very mentally resilient and very mentally strong, because you wouldn't have been here where you are otherwise. And I think that's true to me. Like, if I wouldn't have put my hand up one day after 6 months in therapy because it wasn't really working and said, I think there's something else here, I don't feel like, fair enough, fine, I have depression, I have severe anxiety, but I could have told you that. You know, this is a byproduct of something else that I'm feeling. If I wouldn't have communicated that to my mom, I wouldn't have received a diagnosis, because I would have never navigated that alone, right? And I think I'm also very grateful at my situation and that I'm able to speak about it, because when you look at the spectrum, there's two sides of it. There's people that are never going to be able to communicate it, like I am. But then there's also people, women, who only get diagnosed later on in life, and they have to carry many more years of being resilient, because they only get diagnosed once their kids are diagnosed, and they see themselves through the kids. So I feel lucky and grateful on both sides of the spectrum for the people that are much more challenged within their condition, and people that have to wait much longer than me. But what that looks like for me now, long story long, is that I have a lot more boundaries now. I realize that when I'm doing something hard, it's hard. And that doesn't mean that I'm challenged with the same hard as other people. Hard for me is unique because I am autistic and because of my condition. And I'm grateful I have boundaries, and I stick to those boundaries. And my favorite word since is no. I recommend people that don't know boundaries to learn the word no, and no without context. No is good enough. You know, it's no because you don't want to, full stop. So yeah, it's been a long one, I think, to learn that resilience.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, isn't it? Because with resilience, a lot of the time, I'd say the majority of the time, people only recognise when they're not being resilient, or when maybe you're struggling. And to your point, sometimes you don't realise you're being resilient until maybe someone else points it out, or you might have done so many things. It's sort of almost this like knowledge blindness. You don't realise you're being it until maybe you see a contrast of someone else in the same situation.
Yeah, I asked her, and she was like, your whole life? What do you mean? When have you been resilient? I was like, okay. Thanks. I had my notes out and I was like, okay, well, that's 0 notes then.
What do you think, and Dale, Anthony, I'll go to you first. What do you think is maybe something that you didn't realise was like building your resilience at the time, but looking back, and sort of a bit like what Lara was saying there, was actually going, that built my resilience, but at the time it didn't really feel like it. It just felt like I was surviving or just living.
Me. What built my resilience was going through the tough times, and always having to keep up with others. I was always kind of watching what other people do and trying to keep up with them, because I had a disability in an able-bodied world. Didn't want to be left behind, so I forced myself to kind of keep up with others. Especially, luckily for me, I had two brothers, so sibling rivalry is massive. So, so I always had to keep up with them, and that's just pushing myself to just keep doing it, and that's what I do now, really. And I kind of try to show others that it's in every single person. And I work in a gym now, and when someone says, "Oh, I can't do that," it's like, you can. There's a way to do it. You just got to find your own. There isn't one way to do everything. There's several million ways to get to that goal. And everyone kind of puts themselves in a box. I can't do that. When people say to me, I had one person in the gym, she's like, "Oh, I can't run." I was like, well, running doesn't mean you have to run like Mo Farah. Anything faster than a walk is a run. A little trot on the spot is a run. Yeah. But I actually managed to get her go from walking to running, and she did a 5K, and she's like, "Oh wow, I actually did it." And I think anyone's capable of doing that. You just got to show them, because the human body's this incredible machine, and it will adapt to what you give it. And you just got it's the mind that you have to convince, and once you convince it, then you learn incredible things about yourself, and I think anyone's capable of doing that.
Yeah. There, what about when obviously your challenge that you took on was incredible and collectively, but were there any moments during that time where you felt like this is developing my resilience, or this is where it's really testing my resilience in itself of what I've built to this point?
Yeah, there was a lot, to be honest, but I think when I look back, for me, understanding resilience is so much more different from what I thought it was before. And what I visualized for resilience was, being extreme at everything and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to do this and go out and make it possible regardless of anything that's there. But the way I see resilience now and the way that I took on the challenge is that my whole life has been part of that building for the resilience and building towards to get to the challenge. Is that if I didn't live the life I lived, I would not have been able to do this challenge. It's that, for me, that's what resilience is. Like it's everything that setbacks that you've gone through, every single thing that you have to deal with, whether it's small or whether it's been big, like a loss, and you have to deal with grief and all of that. Because when you're on a journey that pushes you so hard, you have to rely on those setbacks that you had to go through to actually realize that, you know what, I can deal with this situation I'm in now. And I don't have to be, to look so hard and, be like this person that's unbreakable. It's like maybe I need to break down at this point just so I can build myself back up again. So that's also part of resilience. You need to break yourself down, cry, be emotional, be about, but for me, from the background I am from, as an African, we're told, crying is not for men, not for black men especially. And to be there and say, you know what, I need to find a place where I can be able to cry is extremely difficult. So I had to go, like on the journey when I was running from Cape Town to London, I just had to pull myself away sometimes and say, you know what, let me go in a little corner somewhere and just cry my eyes out, knowing that, you know what, that's going to help me the next day or whatever challenge I'm going to go through. And releasing that stress, it's like so much that we hold on so much into all the stress that we have. And that's what builds resilience overall. And that's what gets you through these big big moments that you feel like there's no way of getting out of.
With people listening to this now then, and I think this is giving people a great understanding of what resilience is, because I think there are a lot of myths around it. But if someone's listening to this now and they go, right, I know I want to become more resilient or work on it, or even just raising the awareness of their resilience, what advice does anyone have, of whether it's someone becoming more aware of how resilient they are, or how they can actually go and seek to build that resilience?
Yeah, I think the only way you can build it, because it's not a product, right? You don't go buy it, you don't order it off Amazon, it gets dropped from your door. I do think people think that. I think that about like resilience, motivation, positivity. It's not an order that you put into Amazon and it gets dropped off. The only way that you can do it is to unlock it. And the only way you can unlock it is to go backwards. You've got to go back and find the times that you have been resilient. Like exactly what Deo just said there. To get to his challenge and do it, he had to go back and say, well, when have I showed up? When have I pushed? And as a consequence of that, it gives you the confidence to say, well, I can. And that's why he took on that challenge. You know, Deo didn't run from Cape Town to London one day, wake up and say, I'm going to run from Cape Town to London. It all came to a head because of all the experiences he'd been through. It built and built and built to say, I now am going to do that. And I think for anyone listening that's like, well, I want to be a bit more resilient, or I want to take on a challenge, well, go back and write it down or get it clear in your head and feel it. Where everyone's been resilient because things have happened in life, whether it was through school, whether you felt you were behind in school and you're trying to keep up and revise for an exam. That's resilience. Revising is resilience because you are pushing yourself to get to an answer. And so just going back through your life and breakups and grief and, you know, change and just turning up. Like, I'm sorry, but it doesn't have to be something bad happened in your life to be resilient. I mean, there's times where I don't want to get out of bed. You know, if I'm feeling depressed and I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to do that day. Well, I got up and got out of bed. Well, there you go. That was resilience. So pretty sure everyone can think of a time they didn't want to do something and they did it. That's resilience. And if you can take that, harness it, you know, find where it sits in your body. So then when you go and do that thing you want to be resilient at, you go, oh, where is it located? Oh, it's here. You know, it's like, to me, it's a toolbox. Your life, you go through life, you go through experiences and you create tools and you put them in your box. And then one day something goes wrong and you open the toolbox. So, where's the tool for that? Oh, yeah, that one. From when I was 6. From when I was 20. From the guy who cheated on me. Get that one out, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say, like, you've got the toolbox. You just don't know it. You don't need to buy the toolbox. You don't need to go to anyone else. They're not going to give you the toolbox. You've got a toolbox. Just go back and figure out where the tools are sitting.
And I think also is that giving yourself permission to actually feel things, like, because a lot of the times, like, something could be there and you're feeling it, like you said, it's over there. You feel that there's something there, but you're not giving yourself the permission to say, you know what, let me find out what's going on here. What emotion am I feeling here? Why is it coming up? So a lot of us don't give ourselves that permission. Just give yourself the permission and really feel it and allow it to just be able to have the time to understand it. Because if it's there, it means there's something going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things I speak to a lot of people about is don't just use running to escape, like use it to process. It's not saying it's one or the other, and some people tend to go too much towards escape, or if you're feeling something, I need to escape this feeling, but you only then push it further down the road, or it becomes bigger, to what you were saying about letting it out. And it's finding a balance, of course. There's nothing wrong with going and switching off for half an hour of a run, is there? But also use it as a way to process something, whether that's someone there or not, or whether it's doing it and then coming back and writing it down. I think that writing it down, self-reflection, is one of the biggest things I think that can help. And for me, one thing I've always said to people is, like, when it comes to resilience, a lot of people associate confidence. You have to be confident, but confidence, I think, is an outcome. You know, it's like the cake at the end of it. It's not the flour. I think it's courage over confidence. I often tell people, you know, you'll very rarely always feel confident, but you can always be courageous. And I think you can go into situations, and rather than telling yourself, I need to be confident here, which either A, means you won't do it, B, you'll procrastinate on it, or C, you'll go into it with a negative headspace already, is go, well, focus on courage. Courage is something you can control. Normalize it, as you were saying, Lara, and say it is going to be hard, it is going to be difficult. But I think the more courageous you are, the more confident you become, and the more you realise that, no, actually, I can be resilient in these situations. I might not feel it at the start, but by the end, I'll feel it in some way.
Yeah, and I think the only way that I've been able to develop confidence in my ability and my resilience is by knowing that you've been through the hard things, as they're saying, like having that collection of moments that you're saying, let's say using running as an example, right? If you're lining up at a marathon and everyone's absolutely breaking it, sorry, my French, and they're shitting it completely because it's a nerve-wracking thing to do. But if you're lining up at a marathon and you're going for a time, confidence comes from the fact that you've done 5 marathon sessions at marathon pace and you've nailed them and you know you've done it. And having those moments will then give you the ability to be confident in that you're going to do great if you have a good day, right? So I think that transcends as well to life.
Yeah. Great. Well, nearing the end of the episode, what I want to do now in typical Run Your Mind fashion is ask you all to pick out a question at random. You can either answer this and then you can ask someone else on the panel as well, or group. I don't know why I'm saying panel. Esme, I'll let you pick one first, actually, each, and then I'll give you... If you want to take that, and Lara, if you don't mind passing those down to Anthony and Deo. Okay, Esme, what's your question?
If I could go back and tell myself one thing at the start of my journey, it would be...
Okay, what's your answer?
And
this can be about anything. It doesn't just have to be about resilience.
I think, you're worth it. I think that's a new one for me. Recently, as I've been getting ready for the challenge that I'm about to take on, the project that I'm about to do, I've been working with my therapist and a mindset performance coach, and the biggest thing that's been coming up for me a lot is letting people down, because I'm, letting brands down that believe in me and have put, money into this project to get it moving, or the people that have volunteered their time to come along on the journey. And I have this worry of letting them down. What if I get to a city and no one turns up? And it's a worry that I think about a lot. And actually, one of the things that came out of one of my sessions was you're worth it. And when my therapist said that to me, my whole body changed and I felt like I was going to cry. And I just suddenly was like, hang on a minute. Yeah, I've never probably been able to say that to myself. I'm a doer, constantly doing. And, I turn up and I get people moving, and I never maybe turn inwards and say, yeah, but you're worth it. Like, they turn up for you, or they're sponsoring you, or they believe in you. I always think it's the external. They believe in the project, they believe in movement, they believe in running. And I never go, no, they believe in me. So I think, if I could go back to the start of even this journey, I've been planning this for 18 months now. I'm working on it for 18 months planning, and I think you're worth it. I wish I had that in my mind in every negotiation call I had, and every person I said, I'm going to run the UK, and they were like, no, you're not, didn't believe in it. And you're worth it, probably.
Great. Yeah. Lara, what's your question?
Mine one is, when things get difficult, what usually helps me is communicating how I feel. I think many times when I find things difficult, I catastrophize it in my mind. It becomes a snowball, and then I'm completely in rumination and looping thoughts, and the world is crash landing in my case. So by just saying it, even if it's a few words of how I'm feeling and bursting out to people that are close to me, that helps me validate that I'm actually, it's okay, it's going to be fine. Might be difficult, been there before, going to do it as well. And just leaning on the people around me. I think for me, and probably many other people, communicating my feelings is something extremely difficult to do. It's very foreign in my body. It feels strange. And I came from an extremely loving family. My parents are open books. They share their thoughts and their emotions. But because of the way I'm wired, that didn't really transition into how I find it easy to communicate or not. So just sharing how I feel to get validation from my loved ones that it's going to be okay, that makes me feel better.
Great.
Not that everyone needs to seek validation, but, for me, sometimes it does help.
Anthony.
So mine says, how do you handle the fear of repeating a past knockback? So because I wear a leg brace on my leg, I get extremely bad blisters when I'm running. And I was constantly thinking of ways, how can I stop this? How can I stop this? And I was looking on Amazon, kind of toe protectors, feet things, and that I got silicone. I've wrapped my leg in silicone. I think from going through knockback after knockback, I became a really good problem solver. And I found ways of, I was Vaseline the leg up, then I put silicone on it. And I actually did find ways to stop these blisters. And then I realized that my blisters, people think of a blister and it's not that bad, but these blisters were like the whole foot's like bleeding kind of thing. And I found a way to stop these. And then I was like, oh, if I can stop the blisters from doing that, then that's going to solve everyone's running blisters problem. And how I kind of stopped this as a fear, I just kept repeating it, trying. Okay, that didn't work. Try again. Okay, that didn't work. Try again, until I found a way that it worked every time. Just repetition.
Yeah, great. Theo?
My one is, how do you avoid the fear of failure getting in the way of working towards your goals? I think, to be honest, I don't believe in failure. I don't think that there is such thing as failure. I think everything is a learning lesson. So for me, I just take it as, you know what, maybe it's like I failed today, who cares? I just learn from it and then just build onto that, because there's always something that you can learn from something, from like setback, and say, you know what, like, okay, that didn't work. Maybe let me test this way and then see if that works. It's the same as saying, like, you know, being a problem solver. It's just like, I just pick up something that maybe this is the reason why this didn't work out. So let me find a way to actually solve that problem and then go out and try again. And before you know it, I've succeeded. Yeah.
Great. Well, we've spoke a lot about today around talking about like how you're feeling, communicating. I'm going to ask this as a group, and feel free, whoever wants to go first. What's one thing you're still working on, do you think, in terms of whether it's your running or day-to-day life, something you're intentionally going, I would like to get better at this, improve at this, or manage this more effectively?
I'd say pushing the boundaries. Well, when I was told as a child, you never do this or that, and then I started achieving things, I was like, actually, I can do this. So then I started pushing myself, doing a little bit more. I went from doing track to half a marathon to a marathon. Then this year I'm going to try high rocks. The sky's your limit and beyond. Try every little thing. Don't just stick to one thing, because you could try something and you actually break your beliefs. Like, you learn something you never thought was even possible. And then by trying something else, you do even more. You have one life. Give it everything you got, because I think you want to look back in life when you're 70, 80 years old and think, what an amazing time I had. Not regret and think, I wish I'd tried that. Wish I'd done that. So just give it a go.
Yeah. Great.
Mine would be to believe in myself a bit more. I'm at the moment in my life a learner in every single aspect of what I'm doing. I came from a job that I was confident in, I knew what I was doing and I was thriving, to then scrap that and find myself in a space that I've never been in a creative space before, and I'm doing things that I've no idea what I'm doing and I'm winging them. I read a friend's Substack the other day that she had a sentence that the path is lit. And many times when I'm thinking of the things that I'm doing, I'm finding it so difficult because I don't know what the end product is going to look like, or, you know, how I'm going to get to starting the run club in some cases as an example. But by just knowing that the path is lit, I know what my next task is. I know what the next thing I need to do. So be the launch video for the podcast or finding the next guest, whatever that might be. It's just believing that I can do the next step in this learning journey that I'm undertaking at the moment, to have more confidence to keep going, I think.
Esme, would you say yours is linked to the I'm worth it thing, or is there anything else?
Yeah, I think as well, like I'm living in a lot of anticipation at the moment, and I realise that because I'm anticipating the start of my challenge, I'm training towards it. Everything is about the challenge, and I've got 5.5 weeks until I set off, and I've been thinking about it for 18 months, every day, every night, everything I do, person I talk to, everything I eat, move, how I breathe, how I sleep is this going to help the challenge? Is this going to help me run the challenge? And I'm trying to work on, at the moment, being just here now, and not anticipating it and looking at all the other things in my life that aren't the challenge, because in 5.5 weeks when I'm on the road, and I'm sure Deo can tell me, it's going to be lonely and it's going to be at times and it's going to be hard and tiring and all of this stuff. So actually in the next 5.5 weeks, where can I put my focus into socialising with friends, laying in bed just that little bit longer, sitting, having a coffee and not think about running and moving and challenge. So yeah, just a lot of working on just being very much in the now and to stop anticipating the next thing before it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'll probably add on to that, Esme, because I've been there in your shoes for so long. And I know that time when you're waiting and doing things, and it's, it's emotionally anxious. I think once you start, everything will fall into place. Right. You start to realize, actually, you know what? I've got this. I've really got this. Because once you start, it's just more of like run and get going. But yeah, we'll be there cheering for you, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Thank you.
How about you, Dale? What would you say is one thing you're still working on?
I think for me, it's being more emotionally open. I think I've achieved things that I wanted to achieve in sport, but it's just more of the emotional side of being open and let my feelings out a little bit more. And it's something I've been working on for the last year, therapy and stuff, and just being a bit more like letting people know how I really feel, because I'm quite guarded. And on top of that, I'm quite a quiet person as well. So it kind of it doesn't help so much, but I just want to be able to say, you know what, this is how I'm feeling, and let the people know that this is exactly the position I'm in, so they understand and they know what's going on, instead of just keeping it all in, because then they would never know what's going on with me, and then maybe just holding on to things for so long, and then out of the blues, that boom, explode.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'm happy to share mine as well. I feel like it's only right. I think for me, one thing I'm working on still, I think what I've always seen, and me struggling with my anxiety when I was younger, was the spark as to why I do what now. And I see it as a really good thing, because it helps me be proactive, but I can find myself overthinking things a lot of the time, as in whether it's not catastrophizing, but thinking this could go wrong or that could go wrong. And it's becoming more aware of, a lot of the time I can't outthink a thought, is that if I go down that route, I'm probably only going to be met with doubt and negativity. And sometimes it's just good just to let a thought be a thought and not buy into it, because the moment I step into that conversation, there's not really an answer, and it's becoming more comfortable with uncertainty and things outside of my control, and not looking for safety in or certainty in something that you just can't get it from. And I think when I've done that in the past, that's where I've then sort of catastrophized or self-sabotaged situations. Whereas now I think it's just sitting with it and going, nope, that's the thought. It might happen, but it's not the only possibility. There are other ways in which this can go down as well. So just avoiding that, and not say avoiding it, but just channeling my energy into something that I can control. So when I am thinking it's going, well, actually I can't do anything about that, but I can control the podcast, or, how I show up today and what I am doing. So redirecting my focus, I suppose, is how I would put it. So before we wrap up today, and thank you everyone so much for this, what I'd love you to do, I'm just going to hand you a Post-it note shortly. If you were to write down one thing that a person watching this or listening this today would walk away with from everything you've said or from what someone else has said, and you could write it on this Post-it note, I just want you to take a couple of moments to do that, and I'm just going to ask you to read it out and show the camera. Okay, Esme, if you just hold yours up to that camera there and just read it out.
So mine is say yes to move. There, shall I put it there?
Yeah.
Say yes to movement, because one day you'll have to say no. And then I also added on, if you can do, and if you can't, don't. Simple.
Great. Lara?
Mine says, let me memorize it. Mine says that hard times are always followed by sun. And I say that not in a cheesy way, but what I take from here today is that everyone has been open and kind to share their struggles, or mentally or through things in life. And we're all here on the other side of it. And some people have talked about depression, I think myself as well. When you're in that moment, it's so hard to envision that you're going to be on the other side, that days are going to be better and brighter. And I think everyone here's testament that it does get better. You can get better. It's just you'll learn how to manage those moments in the future. So that's what I would have liked to hear.
Great. Anthony, if you just hold yours up to that camera there, this one here.
So mine says, when you feel like quitting, remember your why. Remember why you started. So if you're doing a marathon, you've entered for a reason. For my reason was to prove those doctors wrong. And when I was going through those tough times, I just remembered why I'm doing this. I wanted to get to that finish line. And when you're going through those tough times, remember your why.
Great. There to that camera as well.
My one says, believe in yourself. I think we all touched on this quite a bit, because a lot of the time people will say that you can't do something. And most people say that from the position that they're standing in, because they will say to you, you can't do it, because they think that they can do it. And they will say, there's no way you can do it. So many times that because you come up with the idea and you come up with the concept and you believe in it, you allow others to change your mind, but you have the answer in you. And so believe in yourself a bit more, and then you overcome it, because then you'll be able to do it. All of us have proved that.
Yeah, great. And mine says, you're here to learn something, not prove something. So I've heard this 3 or 4 years ago, and I feel like it serves me a lot going into situations, particularly things like this, coming in here today, going, I've learned so much from everyone here. And I think if you go into situations thinking, I don't need to prove myself, I'm here to learn, whether it's about myself or about other people or about a situation, I will come out of it in some way a better version of myself. And therefore, I will indirectly prove to myself or prove to others what I'm capable of. So that would be my take. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for your time. So thank you for being so open as well and sharing your stories. And it's been great to listen and, as I said, learn as well. And thank you everyone for listening. If you drop a comment in the comments below of maybe what resilience means to you, or one thing that maybe you took away from today. But Esme, Lara, Anthony, Deo, thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks for listening. See you all again on the next episode. And that's a wrap. Thank you all.